Hi, it's Chris Fraser, Director at Intentional. I'm going to be taking you through the Facebook or Meta Performance 5. So let's get into it. So what's happened? Last month, Facebook ran their Meta Performance Summit, which really went through a reset of the top 5 things to be focusing on as a advertiser. Now, it was very much aimed at performance marketing agencies who are stuck still in an old way of managing ad accounts. And we say old, we're going back 18 months ago. This is all on the back of the iOS changes that drastically altered things in terms of the tracking and therefore interest targeting that's available for Facebook and Instagram ads. As we know, over time, your top performing interest audiences have been deprecated. And through that, the actual best practice for account structures and account changes has dramatically changed. So the number one tip to begin is that learning phase that you heard so much about over the last 12 months, probably 6 months, and very recently the last 3 months from your agency, or if you've got an in-house performance guy or girl, they've probably been talking about we've got to stay out of learning phase. So what is the learning phase? It's really where the algorithm is going in to find out what the best performing creative or audiences or whatever that latest change is that you made. Now, it used to be that it would say learning phase, it would say try and not make as many changes. And it felt like if you're running the ad account that it was making a big difference, but it would actually kick out of it before its time. And so while we gave warnings to clients, look, we don't want to be in learning phase, it wasn't as dangerous as it is now, where literally the unpredictableness of most ad accounts is caused by this constant tweaking. Now, the scary part of learning phase is there can be days when you get double or triple your actual target CPA. But if you can hold course, then over that 1 week or 2 weeks, whatever you need to actually get that learning phase done, you should be able to ride that out and get a consistent, stable result. And then your goal is not bringing yourself back into it. Now, in the Performance Summit, they spoke about a 20% of your budget should be in learning phase, or sorry, a maximum 20% of your budget at any one point in learning phase. So the way that we do this is to keep your always on campaigns protected and then run testing campaigns that are trying to test mainly creative now. Your audiences should be fairly set, they should be broad. We shouldn't be mucking around with interest audiences anymore, but you should be using your creative, and so the creative in that testing phase. Now, another thing to know is that learning mode takes 50 conversions to get out of. So this is going to determine how fast and how many tests, how many creative changes that you can make in a month really, or graduate through from those testing campaigns. Let's just take a $50 CPA. So you need 50 conversions. So you need to spend $2,500 roughly to be able to get out of that learning mode. Now, if that's your daily budget, that's going to be no problems, and you should probably be in a bi-weekly, definitely at least monthly, but probably a bi-weekly testing schedule. Now, if that's 1 week budget or 2 weeks budget, you're going to have to drastically alter your creative changes in your testing schedule. Maybe that's only 1 or twice a month. And so you've got to pay real attention to that learning phase. So that's number 1. Number 2, and I'm going to flip it because we'll get to the most important elements and want to group them all together. So number 2 is Conversions API. If you're on Shopify and you don't have this set up, there's literally no excuse. Stop this video, go read the Shopify and Facebook tutorials and get it done, then come back. It is critical. You need to be doing this ASAP. If you're on other platforms, it's a little trickier. So I'm here, reach out in the comments, or if anyone else knows any great tools to use, add it to the comments for WooCommerce, BigCommerce, Magento, or any non-e-commerce platforms as well. But you've got to get Conversions API sorted. So go get that done now. The next one is measurement. And so really four of the five were really great advice from Facebook. And one of them is probably more to kind of just save their asses a little bit. So let's talk about attribution for a moment. Now, we all know since the iOS changes that Facebook ad accounts don't look anywhere near as good as they once were. And actually, we also know from testing and results now that it's just not performing as well as it was. And that's because we had these high engaged interest audiences that people didn't have to go to your website, but they really enter into your pool because you know that they're shopping or interested in the products that you've got available. And so without that, we saw a decline in performance, but we've also seen a decline in reporting. That coupled with a lot of brands and advertisers were measuring a 28-day click. So if you were also doing a 28-day click, then you got hit with shifting to 7-day click, and then the iOS changes all together at once. So 7-day click means someone clicks your ad today, and then in the next 7 days, they actually check out or purchase or convert. There's also 1-day view. So you see the post and the next day. And they've really dropped in value and in quantity, and a lot of the conversion is the main focus, and that's really what's hurt Facebook. That 1-day view used to be quite significant for them. So we're on a 7-day click. Now there's a whole bunch of tools, right? There's Lifetimely, there's Hyros, there's Triple Whale, and there was a big rush to them straight away because, oh good, we can actually still measure our Facebook performance. Now Facebook in the Performance Summit spoke about their tool Conversion Lift, which is based off Nielsen studies for big brands who actually pay for these studies, and they've compiled that data and be able to pull it through. The whole point is showing, hey, look, your Facebook campaigns are impacting Google search and organic, and actually that 3 times return on ad spend, it should be a 5 times return on ad spend if you add this all together. Triple Whale, Hyros, all of those do that same. Now, they're fine, and if you really, really need to do that to try and justify some of the spend in the short term, then sure, that's fine. Look at those things. But my plea to you and my encouragement to you is, as performance marketers, we've been so blessed to kind of shortcut things. We've had that data available to us. We haven't needed to rely so much on the marketing science and some of the risk and reward that's always existed in marketing. If you're going to put something out there, we don't know 100% if it's going to work. We need to let it run for a period of time and then find ways to measure that. And so really, if you've been involved in total marketing, you understand the rest of your marketing investment outside of your performance budget often needs that risk and reward mentality. And we can actually reduce that risk by leaning on the research of thousands of brands that have been managing long-term investments over a long period of time. And so we need to start looking at our marketing budget, especially even on the digital channels, as leaning on this science, and it is an investment. And so we need to consider what our short-term and our long-term objectives are and how we're managing that budget. Now, I've linked in below to some of Tom Roach's work called The Long and the Short of It, which builds on Burnett and Field's The Long and the Short of It. That's kind of the ultimate guide right now. Mark Ritson, if you're seeing his work in your LinkedIn feed, that's really what's underpinning a lot of his academic side of things. And then you've got Dr. Grace Kite, who I highly recommend. She's looking at what percentage of your spend, what percentage of revenue should be going into marketing spend. And so using those things. Now, initially you might have heard MER, marketing efficiency ratio. Just take your spend, divide it by your revenue, and there's your new ROAS. All of these things are just sort of simplified shortcuts. The reality is, if we keep tracking this along, we're going to get less and less absolute data points. And so any of those tools, my problem with just relying on them, it's still a tool. It's still something third party. You have to trust something. So how can you really trust those to sort of get that mix right? And they're still firmly focused on just short-term gains today. And we know the brands that will win are going to take long-term views. They always have. So I highly encourage you, yes, in the short term, if you're getting pressure and you just need something to measure that result, to just capture where it was, fine. But don't focus on just that bottom of the funnel performance metrics. Start paying attention to that longer term investment. Lean on the science and research. It's time as performance marketers to upskill. This is where it's going to be a clean out of this industry, because those that don't want to embrace the actual marketing science believe that somehow digital sits outside the traditional marketing bubble. It doesn't operate like traditional marketing. Unfortunately, you're going to have a big reality check, is my firm belief. All right. Let's spend the rest of this video talking about creative. Sorry, my nose is itchy. Creative is the most important part now of a better ad account. It's the most important part of a TikTok ad account. It's the most important part of a YouTube ad account. Anything that is visual, and probably in 12 months, we're going to be saying this about Performance Max and Google campaigns, that creative is the most important part. So creative. There's a few things that were raised in this. Number one, branded content. So branded content, your influencer makes an organic post. They provide access to use that post and their page to promote in your ad account. So the ad shows as your brand and that influencer. It shows their post, but you can drive through to your products. We've seen really good performance. We've seen kind of average, no impact. The difference, we believe, we probably haven't done enough testing to prove this, but it feels firmly like if it cut through for organic, it will cut through for paid. So if you've got a high performing long-term organic influencer, they're the ones to focus on for testing this. Now, I wouldn't test that in this next couple of months unless you've got the next part of creative all down. So there's two things here. Number one, user-generated content. So your agency has probably been going on and on and on at you about user-generated content. The information coming out now is that the best performing e-commerce ad accounts specifically, but overall follow those trends on any niche, is that 50% of the account should be user-generated. Now, user-generated is very misleading, and I think it's probably been the main thing that's held back a lot of brands. If you actually look at most user-generated content, we can call that lo-fi content or creator content or customer content. That lo-fi content is often storyboarded, scripted, and shot in a studio to give the feel of user-generated, but it's actually been professionally done. And so just because you hear user-generated, it doesn't mean you're losing brand control. It just means you need to find a new way to stretch your brand into that lo-fi space. The next part is video is absolutely critical, as we know, and that piece of advice seems to be taken up by many, many advertisers to the point we're almost over-indexing in video. Now, the type of video is important, which is why a lot of video is hi-fi, branded content. You need to complement that with lo-fi, the user-generated, but don't ignore statics. So product images, testimonials, even carousels, or the dynamic carousels that we use. The information is that creative diversification in the Performance 5 requires 3 creative types with no one single piece of creative going over a 4 times frequency. Now, if you can maintain that, so you're testing your schedule enough so that creative isn't going over 4 times frequency, you're maintaining 3 types of ads, that you're only using 20% of your budget in terms of testing those, then you're going to stay in a consistent and stable result. And really that's the aim over this next 30, 60, 90 days particularly, as we get through this Q4 sales, but even looking ahead into next year, the advertisers going to win are the ones that are able to maintain stable results. And that means a lot of the things that we once did for optimization to kind of squeeze out performance to get ahead, use the manual tools and techniques, they're now going to be the thing that actually cause you to go backwards or at least lumpy and inconsistent results. And then we all know we get trigger happy and start freaking out if we see results sliding because we want to make a change, but then we're just back into that learning phase. So this is really call to arms to get some stability in your ad account. Got a month as I'm recording this before Black Friday. So just focus as much as you can on getting some stability into your ad accounts and do that through creative testing, and creative diversification is the critical components of that. So that's Performance 5. Love to hear your takeaways and any results that you've been able to get. That frequency of 4 on creative is going to be something really interesting to test over what period of time, and how does that view. At the moment it's saying at any point it hits 4 times, so lifetime. We're interested to see how that goes. And again, it's going to depend on budget size and audience size as we go through. Thanks for listening. If you want to get more content like this, I'll be recording more, so subscribe to our channel and I'll talk to you again soon. Thanks. Bye.